Well, hello, folks. In today's podcast, we bring you something completely different. This is Ingólfur Harðarson, and he is a specialist trauma coach dealing in victims of sexual abuse, which is something that we don't really talk very much about on this channel. I mean, especially sexual abuse for men. So we're going to address a few issues around this today. We're going to talk about his work and we're going to get to know him a little bit better. So, Ingo, for people that don't know you, how do you describe yourself?
I'm simply a normal guy trying to figure out life. The trauma that I went through, the sexual abuse, affected my life in every possible way, but I didn't notice it because it's kind of hidden. And especially for men, it just recently been talked about in adult years, adult age. We have talked about, there's been discussion regarding child abuse for male, but very little about what to do for male when they grow up and get into life. So the message is actually to us, it didn't happen to you because all the solutions, most of them are focused on females. So when I started to work on my issues, I kind of was sent back home because I was a male. It doesn't happen to males, only females. So there was solutions were focused on females. But I knew better. So I figured out a way to address it and managed to work through it. It was really hard, but totally worth it. And now I've published books about it, the journey, the process, the tools to gain your life back. And I was totally in the dark regarding the effects of the abuse until I started working on my issues. It was completely hidden and I didn't understand why life wasn't working. So here I am trying to pay forward what this tool that I received. I look at it as a gift to me, but not only me. It's not supposed to lay beside me in the coffin. It should be on the surface for everybody to grab. So here I am, published 3 books about it, one course on Udemy, and I'm working on the next course. So here I am.
Well, I mean, this is a very interesting subject, and obviously you've brushed on something that can be very isolating. So, at what age did this happen to you, Ingo?
It was very unclear. It was actually hidden for me for 40 years. And when I started working on my other issues, there was mental illness in my family and some alcoholism. And I was working from the effects of that. Then the memories started to come to me. And first in like a photo, then another photo, and ended up in a kind of a short film of the events. So I'm not quite sure about the age, but somewhere 4 years old. Then I believe it was around somewhere between 8 and 10. Then I have other memory, but it's very blurry. But the key is you don't have to remember everything, but the wounds, the feelings, the emotions that you have boiling underneath the surface, they are the key. So the key is to find them, work through them, heal them, nourish the scars, and gain the ability to function in life again with a kind of a new emotional set. So you don't have to remember everything, and you don't have to get acknowledgement of the trauma, but you have to let go of it. But there's a certain procedure that works quite well in that aspect. So there's always a way. You just have to find it.
So, what's your earliest memory of reporting this to somebody, and what response did you get?
I'm not I believe that I told a doctor and my mother about it when I was I'm not quite sure, 10 years old or 12, I'm not sure, but the earliest memory that was clear to me was when I was about 44 years old or so. And when I told people about it, that I only got good responses. But of course, when you go public, I've done a lot of interviews. I've assisted in research projects at the universities, MA and doctors projects. So people sought my assistance in that. And but you know, when you go public and talk about in newspapers and TV, then you get all kinds of responses. That just goes with the territory.
So you brought this up when you were 44, you went public with it and you got positive responses. But I mean, as a kid, and you were the victim of sexual abuse, what were the responses like back then when you
Nothing.
people?
Nothing.
Was there
Nothing.
support at all? I mean, what did you have available at that time?
We have to go back to 1970, so there was nothing, and nobody knew how to deal with it. And there was only one word describing the aspect of sexual abuse, and that was rape. And that was also the fact in when I started digging deeply into my consequences of sexual abuse in 2007, 2008. And we still had only one word, but we've gone a long way since then. It's much better today. So we have much broader definitions and tools to talk about it. And the key is to find what happened to you and find the right tools, the right words, talk about it, and it gets more focused. You know, you're quicker to get to the solution when you can address the issues at hand directly.
So all of this time in between from this happening as young as you can remember to being 44 years old, that was just you on your own dealing with the consequences of it.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that manifest in your life? How did it affect you?
It's quite interesting. Before I started working on it, then I would have answered this, it did not affect me at all. But when I started to dig in, then I realized it affected my whole life. And there was only one thing it didn't affect, and that was how you write my name. That's it. I was constantly walking into kind of glass walls. Life wasn't functioning. I wasn't working. And I had hard time to make friends, relationships, you name it. Everything was affected. And I didn't understand why. I was always trying. I was reading all the self-help books, taking courses. So I had all kinds of in the hindsight, it was actually recipes, how to respond to these circumstances and that. But I wasn't in the flow. I was not, you know, life wasn't functioning at all.
That must have been a tough one. So what was the trigger between you dealing with all of this stuff and thinking that you were normal and finally waking up at 44 years old and thinking, actually, I need to deal with this? What was the trigger for you? How did you know it was time to address this?
You know, and then it was 2004 when I realized that there was something wrong, and I found a solution environment. Started working on my issues. Then, in middle of that, then the sexual abuse memories came to me, and it was like you know, a freight train hitting you. Lost your breath. you lose your breath and everything. And so I started to talk about it. The key is to open up and be vocal, not bury it inside, because that is not a good place to be at, burying stuff. There was some that I was going to take to my grave, but it was actually taking me to the grave. It was killing me. And the trigger regarding digging deep into the trauma was actually, I reached a point, either I talked about it, did something about it, or I took my life. And that is kind of I think it's quite common. You reach the point the life isn't functioning, constantly walking into walls, contra walls, glass walls, you can see the wall, but constant problems, pain inside is unbearable. And so you reach the point that either you talk or you take your life. And taking my life, it doesn't help me gaining my life back. So I talked and sought help and found a way out of it.
So you went looking for help at that time. How did you know who to turn to?
I didn't. I actually searched the internet, went to places, and the message was quite clear. It doesn't happen to men. So I was actually sent back home with this message because it was all female oriented. But prior to that, I had been working a lot in 12-step environment in codependency. And I got a phone number from a friend of mine. There were friends calling me, always asking the same question, are you okay? And I didn't understand why. So, but then I asked myself, why are they calling me and asking the same question? So I took a look at myself and found out that I was not in a good place, working on my own. And one of them gave me a phone number of a good man that had my experience. And I met him, and I was been writing, because emotional state is quite valuable, because that's the key to address issues. So I started writing, and when I was about 15 pages of something, and I asked myself, what are you doing? Are you writing yourself into the darkness or into the solution? So in a desperation, I went onto the internet to Al-Anon and got the 12 steps from there, changed them, rearranged them, and adjusted it to what was suited to this trauma type, and took all that I written and put it into that. And then I felt, okay, it's going to be okay. And I called him, and he was thrilled and came running. And we worked through that, and I gained so much freedom from it.
And how long does a process like that take? How long has it taken you to go from acknowledging that you needed help to being through on the other side?
All the time, just as it takes, because you cannot put a time stamp on it. It's a working process. It all depends on how long you've been in the consequential behavior. And I have it in my books. There is a big picture, the violent incident, and then there's the consequential behavior kind of box. Then the third box is breaking free. So it all depends what you've done so far, but the key is accumulate everything you know, and then we go through that, and I can add some tools into the tool test from my experience and from the books, and then each individual has to assemble their own tool chest and found their way, but you can use kind of my frame as something to build from, and there's no way to say a specific time, but it takes time but it's a time well spent. And today, my worst time today is much better than the best times before. So you got everything to gain from it. You can't lose.
So is this the case that you might not ever get completely over it? You could just improve the situation that you find yourself in. Would that be a fair assessment of what you're telling me?
In a way, the thing is, I call it the black suns. You have a sun shining in the sky that is black, that is dominating your life. And in most cases, you have a lot of black suns. And the key is to work on each sun and take it down. And, sun by sun, then your life gets better and better and better. And then you reach a point when the black suns, they don't matter anymore. But just as in life, there is always something challenging. And when you have worked through the big black suns, you have gained ability. Your emotional and mental tool chest is really good, and it functions on everything. That's the beauty of it. When you've gone through it, you are so mentally strong, emotionally strong, and you have the tools to take on whatever comes into your life. And that's kind of a beauty about it. You don't have to, hit the brakes and reorganize and do everything from scratch again. You have gained wisdom, gained the ability to take on actually everything that comes in. So life is actually quite good, but you never get fully away from it in a way. But you can have a really, really good life. And if something pops up, that's actually, I celebrate it today because I know underneath that what popped up is controlling my life. And I didn't notice it until I dig into it. And when I work through that popped up, then my life will become better. So pain is actually good in its own way because it's telling you you can make your life better. When you have all the tools to do it, then you're in good shape. If you don't, then you simply add some tools to it and you get stronger and can take on more.
So for men that are looking at this thinking, okay, yes, that's me. I've held this in for all these years. What do you suggest they do? What sort of things can they do right here, right now, to make their life better or to move it in a better direction?
First of all, stop blaming yourself for everything. You're not guilty of anything. You did nothing wrong. And you have to embrace yourself in loving, kindly manner and tell yourself that you're enough, you're good. It's not your fault. So there is always a way. I have one way, but there are many ways. There's no one way that fits everybody, but speak up. There is always a solution to everything. So if my method works for you, then I'm quite happy. But if it doesn't, then just keep on going. There's only one thing forbidden in this case, that is to give up. That's it. Speak up. It's not your responsibility. Secrets are problems.
And if people are working with you, Ingo, I mean, what does that look like? What do they need? How long does it take? What's involved?
So I have all the tools to do it. So we start from usually I don't address directly the sexual abuse. The key is to begin to function in life, to gain control, because our minds are spinning and we are full of consequential responses to a situation in life's triggers. And the key is to gain control of every day's life and stop the vortex, because you have to have clear mind to dig in. And the key is to gain clear mind to begin with. And the beauty of that is that you're starting to kind of getting your tools together and practice before you dig into the dark issues. And that's okay. The key is to function in your everyday life. And that is what we start with.
So you're looking to resolve the triggers without actually going into the pain. Is that correct? Am I hearing that correctly?
You don't have to start going into the deepest pain. The key is to gain control of the triggers in everyday life. And they will always lead you to the wounds underneath. And but the key is gain clarity, gain control of everyday life, because then you're more able to take on uh, harder issues. Start small, one step at a time.
So if anyone's watching this and they're interested in finding out more, how exactly do they go about that?
Start by visiting my website, equilibrium.today. Then you have all the information needed, the books, the course, the YouTube channel, have a podcast also. And also, if you want to book time with me, then you can do that also on the website. And, it will be okay. It's a starting point of, you always have to take the first step. And, it's just like on every other elephant. Well, how do you eat an elephant? And you simply eat it one bite at a time. So in this case, we take one step at a time. And the key is, you can say, safety. You do not want to go too fast. You have to take it one step at a time and create kind of a solid ground under yourself to stand on. So it's like you're building a foundation for a heavier load in a way.
So for anyone that's watching this, especially men that are victims of sexual abuse and have been carrying this for all too long, what would you say to them?
And then I will say that you're brave, you're courageous, you're clever, solution oriented. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here today. I know, because it takes a lot of courage to face life. So you're a hero to me. When you
Well,
take the first step, you just take the first step when you take it. And nobody can push you to it. But it will be okay. If you decide to join me on the journey, or want me to have on the journey with you, then I'm here. And together we can do it. I believe in you.
brilliant stuff. Well, thanks, Ingo. I really appreciate you opening up and sharing what must be a very difficult journey that you've been on and working with a very vulnerable demographic of highly
Yeah.
sensitive people. So thank you for your time. And I look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure.